Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the dusty, sun-warmed world of the Indus Valley, where clay pots aren't just dishes, they're practically sacred art. Picture yourself in a Harappan village around 2500 BCE, the air thick with river mud and the hum of quiet work. You're about to join potters who craft their lives in silence, their hands speaking louder than words in rituals that feel like secrets whispered to the earth. Fair warning, you might get clay under your nails, and there's no Wi-Fi out here. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Oh, and drop a comment below to tell me your city and what time it is where you are. I'm curious! Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake to the gentle glow of dawn, the horizon blushing pink over a sprawling Harappan village. The air's warm already, carrying the earthy scent of damp clay and the faint smoke of distant kilns. You're standing on a packed dirt path, your bare feet. Sorry, those sandals didn't make the time jump, sinking slightly into the ground. Around you, mud brick houses huddle close, their flat roofs dotted with drying pots like a ceramic skyline. You hear the soft clink of clay being shaped, the rhythm of a village waking to its work. You're here to witness the silent rituals of the potters, a craft so revered it's practically a religion. Spoiler, it's less about talking and more about feeling the earth in your hands. You wander toward a cluster of open kilns, where a potter named Ravi kneels beside a pile of wet clay. He's older, his hands scarred but steady, and he doesn't speak as he molds a lump into a smooth, round base. You crouch beside him, trying not to sneeze from the dust, and watch his fingers move like they're dancing with the clay. The silence isn't awkward, it's deliberate, almost sacred. Ravi's part of a tradition that's been going for centuries, where potters work without words, letting their hands carry the story. You're tempted to ask questions, but his focused gaze says, "Shush, just watch." So you do, and it's oddly calming, like meditating with mud. Let's set the historical stage. The Indus Valley civilization, thriving around 2600–1900 BCE, was a marvel of urban planning, with cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro boasting advanced drainage and trade networks. Pottery was central to daily life, used for cooking, storage, and even rituals. But it was also an art form. Potters were skilled artisans, their work etched with symbols that hint at spiritual or social meaning. The silent rituals you're seeing weren't just about efficiency, they were a way to connect with the earth, the river, and maybe something divine. Historians think these practices helped unify communities, but the details, they're as slippery as wet clay. Ravi pauses to smooth a pot's rim, his movements precise, almost reverent. You notice he's not alone. Other potters, men and women, work nearby, their hands mirroring his in a quiet symphony. They don't chat or laugh. The only sounds are the slap of clay and the occasional chirp of a bird. You're starting to get why silence matters here. It's not about being antisocial. It's about focus, about letting the clay speak. You try shaping a lump yourself, and it's harder than it looks. Your pot wobbles like a drunk turtle, and Ravi's slight smile says he's seen worse. You're not quitting your day job, but you're hooked on the process. Here's the quirky detail. Some potters believed the clay had a spirit that needed to be honored. Before shaping, they'd press their foreheads to the raw clay, a silent gesture to ask its permission. Sounds weird, right? But in a world where the river and earth were life itself, it made sense. The odd part, if the clay refused. Say, if it cracked too easily, they'd abandon it and start over, like it was cursed. Historians still debate whether this was a spiritual belief or just a practical way to check clay quality. Some argue it was about respecting nature, others think it was a superstition born from trial and error. You're holding your lumpy pot, wondering if it's got a spirit or just your bad technique. As the sun climbs higher, the village hums with quiet purpose. You notice a young girl watching Ravi, mimicking his movements with a tiny clay ball. She's learning, and you're struck by how knowledge passes here. Not through words, but through hands and eyes. You set your sad pot aside, hoping it doesn't offend any clay spirits, and follow the path toward the river. That's where the clay comes from, and you're betting it's got its own rituals waiting. The day's just beginning, and this village is already teaching you to listen to the silence. You're trudging toward the banks of the Indus River now, the morning sun warming your back as the village's hum fades into the distance. The air's thick with the scent of wet earth and reeds, and your bare feet. Still no sandals. Sorry. sink into the soft, muddy path. Your lumpy pot from Ravi's lesson is tucked under your arm, a reminder that pottery's harder than it looks. You're headed to the riverbank where the potters harvest their clay, a task that's less about digging and more about a quiet ritual that feels like asking the earth for a favor. The river's low shimmer catches your eye, and you're already wondering what secrets it holds. You reach the bank, where the Indus glints like liquid bronze under the rising sun. A group of potters, men and women, kneel along the shore, their hands plunging into the sticky, gray, brown clay that lines the riverbed. There's no chatter, just the soft squelch of mud and the rhythmic lap of water. You spot a woman named Leela, her arms caked in clay up to her elbows, her face serene as she scoops a handful and presses it to her chest before setting it in a basket. You're intrigued? This isn't just gathering dirt, it's something deeper, a silent pact with the river. You kneel beside her, ready to get your hands dirty, literally. Let's set the historical stage. The Indus River was the lifeblood of the Harappan civilization around 2600–1900 BCE, sustaining cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro with water trade and, yes, clay. This wasn't just any mud, it was the foundation of their pottery, which ranged from everyday jars to intricately decorated ritual vessels. Harvesting clay was a communal act, often tied to spiritual beliefs about the river as a giver of life. The silence you're witnessing wasn't just practical, it was a way to honor the earth's gifts, blending work with reverence. Historians think these rituals strengthened community bonds, but the specifics are murky, like the river itself. Leela hands you a basket, gesturing for you to try. You plunge your hands into the cool, slick clay, and it's heavier than you expected, clinging to your fingers like it's got a mind of its own. The potters move with a quiet rhythm, scooping and packing the clay without a word, their focus almost meditative. You try to mimic them, but your clump looks more like a mud pie than sacred material. Leela's eyes crinkle with amusement, and you're starting to think this whole, silent ritual thing is a test of patience. Still, there's something soothing about the river's murmur and the clay's weight in your hands, like you're part of something ancient. Here's the quirky details some potters would sing to the clay. Not with words, but by tapping their fingers on the riverbank in a specific rhythm, believed to wake the clay's spirit. The odd part, if the rhythm faltered, they'd discard the batch, thinking it was unhappy. Historians still debate whether this was a spiritual practice or a way to ensure the clay's texture was right. Tapping might have helped them feel for grit or water content. Some argue it was about connecting with nature. Others say it was just quality control dressed up as mysticism. You're tapping the bank now, feeling a bit silly, but the steady beat is oddly calming, like a heartbeat in the mud. You fill your basket, your arms aching from the weight, and notice the other potters pausing to rinse their hands in the river. Leela dips her fingers in the water, letting the current carry away the excess clay, and you follow suit. The water's cool, and for a moment, you feel like you're part of the river's flow, giving back as much as you take. The silence among the potters isn't heavy, it's shared, like a secret everyone's in on. You glance at Leela, who nods slightly, as if you've passed some unspoken test. Your mud pie's not winning awards, but you're starting to get the rhythm of this place. As the sun climbs higher, the group begins to disperse, baskets brimming with clay slung over their shoulders. You hoist yours, trying not to spill, and follow the path back toward the village. The river's glint lingers in your mind, and you're already curious about the next step, turning this sticky mess into pots. You've heard the potter's wheels are where the real magic happens, and you're betting it's another silent ritual waiting to unfold. For now, you let the river's quiet song guide your steps, your hands still tingling with the memory of clay. The village hums softly under the midday sun as you trudge back from the river, your basket heavy with sticky clay, its earthy scent clinging to your hands. The air's warm, laced with the faint smoke of kilns and the rustle of palm leaves overhead. Your bare feet, still no sandals, you're surviving, kick up dust on the path, and your lumpy mud pie from earlier is safely stashed with Ravi's forgiving smile in your memory. You're headed to a potter's workshop now, where the clay you hauled gets spun into shape on a wheel that's been turning for centuries. The silence of the riverbank follows you, and you're curious to see how these potters weave their quiet magic into something solid. You reach a low mud, brick shed, its roof thatched with reeds, where a row of potter's wheels sits under an open awning. The wheels are simple, flat stone discs balanced on wooden pivots, but they hum with purpose as potters work, their hands steady and wordless. You spot a young man named Arjun, his fingers coaxing a lump of clay into a smooth curve, his face calm as if he's meditating. You're drawn to the rhythm of the wheel, its soft whir like a heartbeat, and you're itching to try it yourself. Arjun gestures to an empty wheel, and you settle in, ready to make another questionable masterpiece. Let's ground this in history. The Indus Valley civilization, around 2600–1900 BCE, was a hub of craftsmanship, and pottery was its backbone. The potter's wheel was a game changer, letting artisans churn out uniform pots for storage, cooking, and rituals. These weren't just tools. They were symbols of order in a complex society, with trade routes stretching to Mesopotamia. The silence you're noticing wasn't just for focus. It was part of a cultural practice that valued precision and connection to the craft. Historians think this quiet work fostered a kind of communal trance, tying potters to each other and the earth, though the details are as hard to pin down as wet clay. You set your clay on the wheel, giving it a tentative spin. It wobbles, and your lump threatens to fly off like a rebellious pancake. Arjun's watching, his eyes twinkling with amusement, but he doesn't speak, just nudges your hands to guide the clay's center. You're starting to get it. The wheel demands patience, not force, and the silence helps you feel the clay's flow. Your pot's shaping up, less turtle, more vase, but it's still a bit lopsided. You're not sure if you're crafting art or comedy, but the wheel's steady hum is pulling you in, making the world feel small and still. Here's the quirky detail some potters would bless their wheels by sprinkling them with river water before starting, believing it kept the clay obedient. The odd part: if the wheels spun unevenly, they'd stop and re-sprinkle, thinking the clay was resisting. Historians still debate whether this was a spiritual ritual or a practical way to clean the wheel and check its balance. Some argue it was about honoring the river's role in their craft. Others say it was just superstition to explain wobbly pots. You're tempted to splash some water on your wheel, but Arjun's raised eyebrow says you're already pushing your luck. The workshop's alive, with quiet motion now, potters spinning and shaping in unison, their hands moving like dancers in a trance. You notice a woman nearby smoothing a pot's rim with a wooden tool, her movements so precise it's almost hypnotic. You try to mimic her, but your rim looks like it's been chewed by a goat. Arjun doesn't laugh, bless him, but he gently corrects your grip, and you start to feel the clay respond. The silence isn't empty, it's full of shared focus, like everyone's breathing in sync. You're starting to love this wordless rhythm, even if your pot's destined for the reject pile. As the sun shifts, casting long shadows across the workshop, you notice a young boy watching from the sidelines, mimicking Arjun's hand movements in the air. He's learning, just like the girl you saw earlier, and it hits you how this craft passes through time, silently, steadily, hand to hand. You set your wobbly pot aside, hoping it's not cursed, and wipe the clay from your fingers. The workshop's hum lingers as you step outside, drawn toward the village square where potters etch strange symbols into their creations. You're betting those marks hold stories, and you're ready to see what they whisper. The afternoon sun beats down on the Harappan village, its heat softening the clay dust under your bare feet as you leave the potter's workshop behind, your wobbly pot now a proud, if crooked, souvenir. The air hums with the scent of baked earth and faint traces of tamarind from a nearby grove. Your hands are still tacky with clay, and you're starting to feel like you belong in this quiet, ancient world. You're headed to the village square now, where potters etch mysterious symbols into their creations. Marks that might be names, prayers, or something nobody's cracked yet. After the wheel's hypnotic rhythm, you're ready to see what stories these pots are telling without a single word. You reach the square, a bustling patch of packed dirt where potters sit cross-legged under palm frond awnings, their tools spread out like surgical kits. The air's alive with the soft scratch of styluses on clay, and you spot a woman named Mira, her fingers tracing intricate seals into a pot's surface. Her work's deliberate, almost reverent, and the silence around her feels heavy with purpose. You crouch nearby, trying not to block her light, and watch her carve a tiny bull motif, its horns curling like a crescent moon. You're itching to know what it means, but the rule here is clear: no talking, just doing. So you observe, feeling like a detective in a clay-covered mystery. Let's ground this in history. The Indus Valley civilization, around 2600–1900 BCE, was famous for its seals, small carved stones or clay impressions often found on pottery or trade goods. These symbols, featuring animals, geometric shapes, or cryptic script, are one of archaeology's great puzzles. They might have marked ownership, honored deities, or tracked trade, but their exact meaning remains elusive. The potter's silent work wasn't just artistic. It was a cultural cornerstone tying communities to their rituals and trade networks across Mesopotamia and beyond. The silence, historians suggest, helped maintain focus on these intricate designs, but it also feels like a nod to something sacred. Mira hands you a smooth, unfired pot and a bone stylus, gesturing for you to try. You hesitate. Your last pot was a disaster, but you take a deep breath and start scratching a wobbly spiral. It's not exactly art, more like a doodle gone rogue, but Mira's patient nod keeps you going. The stylus feels alive in your hand, the clay yielding like soft butter. You're starting to get why this is a ritual. The act of carving feels like leaving a piece of yourself in the pot, a silent message for whoever holds it next. Your spiral's wonky, but it's yours, and you're weirdly proud of it. Here's the quirky detail: some potters believed the symbols had to be carved in one breath, as if pausing would break the mark's power. The odd part: if you exhaled too hard, the clay might crack, so they'd hold their breath like divers, faces turning red as they etched. Historians still debate whether this was a spiritual practice or just a way to keep dust out of the clay. Some argue it was about channeling intent into the symbol. Others think it was a practical trick to steady the hand. You're trying it now, holding your breath as you carve, and your lungs are screaming. Mira's amused glance says you're doing it wrong, but you're committed. The square's buzzing quietly now, with potters exchanging finished pots for inspection, their gestures quick and wordless. You notice a man nearby carving a fish, its scales so detailed you wonder how he sees without glasses. You swap a shy smile with him, and he points to your spiral, giving a slight nod. It's not approval exactly, but it's enough to make you feel less like an imposter. Your pot's still drying, its surface tacky under your fingers, and you're wondering what it'd look like fired. Probably like a lopsided cookie, but you're attached to it anyway. As the sun dips lower, casting golden streaks across the square, you notice a group of children watching from the sidelines, mimicking the potter's movements with sticks in the dirt. The tradition's alive, passing through eyes and hands, no words needed. You set your pot down, hoping it doesn't offend any clay spirits, and wipe the dust from your hands. The square's energy lingers, but you're drawn toward the kilns, where the night's firing is said to be a communal ritual. You're betting it's another silent spectacle, and you're ready to feel the heat of it. The sun's sinking low over the Harappan village, painting the sky in shades of amber as you leave the bustling square behind, your freshly etched pot tucked under your arm, its wobbly spiral a badge of effort. The air's cooling, carrying the smoky scent of burning wood and the faint tang of river mud. Your bare feet, still holding up, barely, shuffle through the dust as you head toward the communal kilns, where the potters gather under starlight to fire their creations. After the silent carving in the square, you're curious about this next ritual, a wordless dance of fire and clay that binds the village together. The glow of the kilns is already flickering in the distance, pulling you like a moth to a flame. You reach the kiln yard, a wide, open space dotted with dome-shaped ovens, their clay walls cracked from years of heat. The potters are here, moving with quiet purpose, stacking pots inside the kilns with the care of parents tucking in children. You spot Ravi, the potter from dawn, arranging kindling with a steady hand, his face lit by the first sparks of fire. The silence is thick, broken only by the crackle of wood and the soft thud of clay against clay. You're invited to join with a nod, and you crouch near a kiln, feeling the warmth on your skin, ready to see how this fire transforms your lumpy masterpiece. Let's ground this in history. The Indus Valley civilization, around 2600–1900 BCE, relied on kilns to turn raw clay into durable pots, essential for storage, cooking, and rituals. These communal firings weren't just practical, they were social events, bringing potters together in a shared act of creation. The silence you're witnessing likely helped maintain focus during the delicate process. Too much heat, and pots would crack; too little, and they'd stay brittle. Historians suggest these gatherings also reinforced community ties, with the kilns acting as a kind of sacred hearth for the village. The exact rituals are lost, but the fire's glow feels like a clue to something deeper. Ravi hands you a stick to stoke the fire, and you mimic his slow, deliberate movements, trying not to set anything unintended ablaze. The kiln's heat is intense, like standing too close to a campfire, and you're sweating through your tunic. You place your pot inside, nestling it among others, and it feels like sending a kid off to school. Nerve-wracking but exciting. The potters work in sync, feeding the fire with dried reeds, their hands moving like they've done this 1,000 times. You're struck by the quiet trust among them, no words needed to keep the rhythm. Your own efforts are clumsy, but the warmth and the crackle pull you into the moment, like you're part of the fire itself. Here's the quirky detail some potters would offer. A small clay figurine to the kiln before firing, believing it pleased the fire spirits and ensured a successful batch. The odd part, these figurines were often shaped like animals, bulls, birds, or even fish, and left to burn to ash, as if the fire needed a snack. Historians still debate whether this was a spiritual act or a practical test of the kiln's heat. Burning a figurine might have shown if the temperature was right. Some argue it was about honoring the earth's elements. Others think it was just superstition to calm anxious potters. You're eyeing a tiny clay bowl by the kiln, wondering if you should toss it in or stick to stoking. The fire's roaring now, its glow casting shadows that dance across the potters' faces. You notice a woman nearby adjusting her pots with a long stick, her movements so precise it's like she's speaking to the fire. You try to copy her, but your stick nearly knocks over a neighbor's pot, earning you a patient glance from Ravi. You're not winning Potter of the Year, but you're learning silence and fire demand respect, and you're starting to feel the weight of both. The stars overhead seem to watch, their light mingling with the kiln's glow, and you're wondering what your pot will look like when it emerges. As the night deepens, the potters settle around the kilns, their work done for now. They sit in a loose circle, sharing flatbread and water, still silent but connected, like the fire's warmth binds them. You join in, nibbling on bread that tastes like smoke and earth, and feel a quiet pride in your lumpy pot baking away. The kiln's heat lingers on your skin as you step back, ready to explore the next ritual. Something about secret vows the potters make to their creations. The village is alive with starlight, and you're ready to hear what the clay whispers next. The stars are bright over the Harappan village now, their light mingling with the fading glow of the kilns as you slip away from the firing yard, your skin still warm from the fire's embrace. The air's cooler, carrying the scent of baked clay and night-blooming jasmine, and your bare feet, toughening up, somehow, pad softly on the dirt path. Your lumpy pot's baking in the kiln, and you're carrying the memory of its wobbly spiral like a secret. You're headed to a quieter corner of the village, where potters are said to whisper silent vows to their creations, a ritual so intimate it feels like eavesdropping. The night's stillness pulls you forward, promising something sacred. You find a small, open courtyard tucked behind a row of mud brick houses, where a handful of potters sit in a circle, each cradling an unfired pot. The moonlight bathes them in silver, and the only sound is the faint rustle of leaves overhead. You spot Leela, the clay gatherer from the river, holding a smooth jar, her lips moving silently as if sharing a secret with it. The scene's so serene you're afraid to breathe too loud, so you settle on a low wall, trying not to disturb the moment. This isn't just pottery, it's a conversation with the clay, and you're about to learn its language. Let's ground this in history. The Indus Valley civilization, thriving around 2600–1900 BCE, wove spirituality into everyday work, especially in crafts like pottery. Pots weren't just objects, they were vessels for food rituals, and maybe even souls. The silent vows you're witnessing likely tied the potters to their creations, blending practical skill with a belief in the clay's deeper meaning. Historians suggest these rituals were about infusing pots with intent, whether for trade, storage, or worship, though the specifics are lost to time. The silence, they argue, was a way to focus that intent, making each pot a piece of the potter's spirit. It's a guess, but it feels true in this moonlit courtyard. Leela notices you and beckons you closer, handing you a small, unfired bowl. She gestures for you to hold it close and speak to it silently, her eyes serious but kind. You feel a bit silly, clutching the bowl like it's a phone, but you give it a try, mouthing a vague wish for your pot to survive the kiln. The silence wraps around you, and for a moment you're alone with the clay, its cool surface grounding you. You're not sure if you're blessing it or just apologizing for your terrible spiral, but there's something powerful about the act, like you're sealing a promise no one else can hear. Here's the quirky detail some potters believed their vows could bind. The pot's purpose? Ensuring it held grain, water, or offerings without fail. The odd part, they'd sometimes tap the pot 3 times after the vow, thinking it locked the promise in. If the pot cracked later, it was a sign the vow wasn't true. Historians still debate whether this was a spiritual practice or a way to test the clay's integrity. Tapping might have revealed hidden flaws. Some argue it was about connecting with the divine. Others say it was just a superstition to ease the potter's nerves. You're tapping your bowl now, feeling a bit ridiculous, but Leela's nod makes you think you're doing it right. The courtyard's alive with quiet motion, potters cradling their creations like treasures, their lips moving in wordless promises. You notice a man nearby tapping his pot gently, his face calm but focused, like he's entrusting it with a secret. You try it too, tapping 3 times, and the soft thump feels like a heartbeat. The silence isn't empty. It's full, heavy with trust and care. You're starting to get why these vows matter. They're not just for the pots, but for the potters, tying them to their craft and each other. Your bowl feels heavier now, like it's carrying your clumsy hopes. As the moon climbs higher, the potters begin to disperse, tucking their pots under their arms and slipping into the night. Leela gives you a small smile, as if you've passed some unspoken test, and you clutch your bowl tighter, wondering what vow you'd make if you were braver. The courtyard's emptying, but the village's pulse lingers, drawing you toward the marketplace where these pots will soon be traded. You're betting it's another silent ritual, full of gestures and glances, and you're ready to see what the clay buys in this ancient world. The night's deep over the Harappan village now, the moon casting a soft glow as you leave the quiet courtyard, your unfired bowl cradled in your hands, its weight a reminder of the silent vows you whispered. The air's cool, tinged with the scent of clay and distant cook fires, and your bare feet, surprisingly tough, pad lightly on the dirt path. The village sleeps, but the marketplace is stirring, a hub where potters trade their creations in a wordless dance of gestures and glances. After the intimacy of Leela's ritual, you're curious to see how these pots, carrying their maker's hopes, find new homes. The market's faint hum draws you in, promising a new kind of silent magic. You reach the marketplace, a sprawling square lit by flickering oil lamps, where stalls are piled high with pots, beads, and woven mats. The crowd's a mix of traders, farmers, and curious kids, their shadows dancing on the ground. You spot a potter named Kiran, his table stacked with jars etched with fish and spirals, his hands moving in quick, precise gestures as he barters with a merchant. No words pass between them, just nods, pointed fingers, and the clink of clay. You're struck by the silence, not cold but alive, like a conversation in code. You edge closer, clutching your bowl, ready to see how this quiet trade works. Let's ground this in history. The Indus Valley civilization, around 2600–1900 BCE, was a trade powerhouse, with markets in cities like Harappa linking farmers, artisans, and merchants as far as Mesopotamia. Pottery was a star commodity, used for storage, cooking, and rituals, and its trade was often conducted with minimal speech, relying on gestures to cross language barriers. This silent trade wasn't just practical, it was a cultural hallmark, reflecting trust and shared understanding in a diverse society. Historians suggest it helped maintain peace in bustling markets, but the exact rules of these exchanges remain a puzzle, as cryptic as the seals on Karen's pots. Karen notices you and gestures to his table, offering a small pot with a bull motif in exchange for something of value. You don't have much, just your lumpy bowl and a stubborn sense of curiosity, but you hold it up, half joking. He inspects it with a raised eyebrow, then nods, pointing to a tiny jar with a wavy pattern. You're not sure if it's pity or politeness, but you make the swap, feeling like you've just won at ancient Craigslist. The jar's smooth in your hands, its curves catching the lamplight, and you're starting to see why these pots are worth more than words. Here's the quirky detail. Some traders would test a pot's worth by tapping it with a knuckle, listening for a clear ring to prove its quality. The odd part, if the pot didn't ring, they'd sometimes rub it with a specific leaf, mint or neem. 2. Cleanse its spirit before trading. Historians still debate whether this was a practical quality check or a ritual to honor the pot's maker. Some argue the leaf rubbing was about ensuring cleanliness in a dusty market. Others say it was a superstition to ward off bad luck. You're tapping your new jar now, and it rings softly, earning a nod from Kiran. You skip the leaf though. Your hands are already gritty. The market's alive with silent exchanges, hands pointing and heads tilting as pots change hands. You notice a woman nearby trading a large storage jar for a basket of grain, her gestures sharp but friendly, like a dance she's done 1,000 times. You try bartering for a clay bead, offering a pebble you found by the river, but the vendor shakes his head, amused. You're not a master trader yet, but the silence makes it fun, like a game where everyone knows the rules except you. Your jar feels like a small victory, and you tuck it into your satchel, wondering what stories it carries. As the lamps flicker lower, the market starts to thin, traders packing up under the starlit sky. Kiran gives you a slight smile, as if you've earned a spot in this quiet world, and you head toward the village's edge. You've heard of a potter's shrine nearby, where clay offerings honor something ancient. Maybe gods, maybe spirits. The market's rhythm lingers in your steps, and you're ready to see what sacred secrets the night holds next. The Harappan village is cloaked in moonlight now, the air cool and heavy with the scent of damp clay and blooming night flowers. As you slip away from the marketplace, your new jar tucked safely in your satchel alongside your wobbly bowl. Your bare feet, tougher than you thought, glide over the soft dirt path, and the distant hum of the market fades into the night's quiet pulse. You're headed to a potter's shrine, a hidden spot where clay offerings are said to honor ancient spirits, maybe even gods. After the silent bustle of trading, you're ready for something stiller, something that feels like the village's heart whispering through the clay. You find the shrine tucked behind a grove of tamarind trees, its low mud, brick walls glowing faintly under the moon. A single oil lamp flickers at its center, casting shadows on a small clay altar piled with tiny pots and figurines. A potter named Surit kneels nearby, her hands gently placing a miniature jar on the altar, her movements slow and deliberate. The silence here is different, deeper, almost heavy, like the air itself is listening. You settle on a patch of grass, trying not to rustle the leaves, and watch Shuri's ritual unfold, feeling like you've stumbled into a sacred moment. Let's ground this in history. The Indus Valley civilization, around 2600–1900 BCE, wove spirituality into daily life, and shrines like this were common, often dedicated to local deities or natural forces. Pottery played a big role in these rituals. Pots and figurines were offered to honor spirits, ensure harvests, or protect the community. The silence you're witnessing wasn't just reverence, it was a way to focus intent, making each offering a quiet prayer. Historians suggest these shrines were community anchors, but their exact purpose, whether for gods, ancestors, or something else, remains a mystery as elusive as the symbols etched on Suri's pots. Shuri notices you and gestures for you to join her, handing you a tiny clay bird she's shaped. She points to the altar, her eyes encouraging you to place it there. You're not sure what you're offering, good vibes maybe, but you kneel beside her, setting the bird among the other figurines. The act feels solemn, like you're leaving a piece of yourself on the altar. You notice Suri tracing a spiral on her jar before setting it down, and you mimic her, drawing a wobbly line on your bird with your finger. The silence wraps around you, and for a moment, you feel connected to something bigger, even if you don't know what it is. Here's the quirky detail: some offerings were painted with red ochre, believed to awaken the spirit within the clay. The odd part: the ochre had to be mixed with river water and applied in a single stroke, or the offering might lose its voice. Historians still debate whether this was a spiritual practice or a way to mark sacred objects for trade or ritual. Some argue the red was symbolic, linked to life or fertility. Others think it was just a way to make offerings stand out. You're eyeing Suri's red, streaked jar now, wondering if you should have painted your bird, but your shaky spiral feels personal enough. The shrine's quiet grows as more potters arrive, each adding their own offerings. Pots, birds, even a tiny bowl like the one you saw at the kiln. Their movements are slow, almost choreographed, and the silence feels like a shared breath. You notice a young man placing a cracked pot on the altar. Then Suri whispers, barely audible, that it's to release its spirit. You're not sure if it's reverence or recycling, but the act is oddly moving. You pat your jar in your satchel, hoping it's not jealous of your clay bird, and feel the weight of this place settle in your chest. As the moon climbs higher, the potters begin to leave, their offerings glowing softly in the lamplight. Suri gives you a nod, as if you've earned a place in this quiet ritual, and you stand, brushing grass from your tunic. The shrine's peace lingers, but you're drawn to a rumor of a strange ceremony where potters break their creations on purpose. It sounds like madness, but in this village, madness feels like meaning. You head toward the river's edge, the night guiding your steps, ready to see what shattering pots reveals. The moonlight bathes the Harappan village in a silvery glow as you wander from the potter's shrine, the weight of your clay bird offering still lingering in your mind. The air's crisp, scented with tamarind and the faint smoke of distant kilns, and your bare feet, now practically calloused, tread lightly on the cool dirt path, your satchels growing heavy with your jar and bowl, each a quiet piece of this village's story. You're headed to a clearing by the river, where potters are said to perform a strange ritual, smashing their pots to release their souls. After the shrine's solemn calm, you're braced for something wilder, a silent ceremony that sounds equal parts destruction and devotion. You reach the clearing, a flat stretch of earth where the Indus River glints like a ribbon under the stars. A small group of potters stands in a loose circle, each holding a finished pot, some plain, some etched with spirals or fish. You spot Arjun, the potter from the wheel, cradling a wide-mouthed jar, his face calm but focused. The silence is thick, broken only by the river's soft murmur and the occasional rustle of reeds. You find a spot on the edge, clutching your satchel, and watch as the first potter raises a pot overhead, then smashes it against a flat stone with a sharp crack. The sound hits you like a jolt, but the potter's calm faces say this is no accident. Let's ground this in history. The Indus Valley civilization, around 2600–1900 BCE, used pottery not just for practical needs, but for rituals that tied communities to their beliefs. Breaking pots intentionally wasn't uncommon. Archaeologists have found smashed vessels in graves, shrines, and riverbanks, suggesting they held symbolic meaning. This broken pot ceremony might have been a way to release the pot's purpose, return it to the earth, or honor a deity. The silence, historians argue, was key to keeping the act sacred, focusing the intent of destruction. But the exact reasons, they're as fragmented as the pots themselves, leaving plenty of room for guesswork. Arjun steps forward, raising his jar high, and you wince as he brings it down, shards scattering like stars on the ground. He doesn't flinch, just steps back, and another potter takes his place. You're invited to join with a nod, and Arjun hands you a small, cracked pot from a pile. Apparently, imperfect ones are fair game. You hesitate, feeling oddly attached to your wobbly creations, but you step up, lifting the pot. The smash is louder than you expected, and the clay crumbles under your hands, leaving you with a strange mix of guilt and release. The potters nod, like you've just passed a test, and you're starting to get the ritual's pull. Here's the quirky detail: some potters believed the sound of the breaking pot carried its voice to the spirits, ensuring its purpose was fulfilled. The odd part, they'd sometimes choose a specific stone for smashing, thinking its shape, round or flat, changed the sound's message. Historians still debate whether this was a spiritual act or a way to recycle clay by breaking flawed pots for reuse. Some argue the sound was symbolic, linking earth and sky. Others say it was just practical cleanup with a mystical twist. You're standing among the shards now, wondering if your pot's voice said anything profound or just "Oops." The circle continues, pots shattering one by one, each crack echoing in the quiet night. You notice a woman nearby sweeping the shards into a pile, her movements careful, like she's gathering something precious. You ask, silently, with a raised eyebrow, and she gestures to the river, suggesting the pieces will be returned to the water. It's poetic, but you're betting it's also practical, keeping the clearing tidy. The silence binds the group, and you feel it too, like you're part of a shared heartbeat. Your smashed pot's fragments glint in the moonlight, and you're wondering what they're saying to the stars. As the ceremony winds down, the potters disperse, leaving the clearing littered with clay dust. Arjun gives you a slight smile, as if you've earned a piece of their world, and you head back toward the village, the river's murmur fading behind you. The night's alive with quiet purpose, and you've heard whispers of women potters weaving songs into their clay, silent melodies that sound impossible but intriguing. You're ready to see what music clay can hold, your steps light under the starlit sky. The Harappan village is hushed under a star-strewn sky, the air cool and fragrant with the scent of river reeds and fading kiln smoke as you wander from the shattered pot clearing. Your bare feet, now battle hardened, glide over the soft dirt, and your satchel, heavy with your jar and bowl, bumps against your hip. The memory of that sharp crack as you smashed a pot lingers, a strange mix of destruction and peace. You're headed to a quiet corner of the village now, where women potters are said to weave silent songs into their clay, a ritual that sounds like poetry wrapped in mystery. After the riverbank's chaos, you're ready for something softer, something that hums without sound. You find the women's workshop near a cluster of low mud brick houses, its open courtyard lit by a single flickering lamp. A group of women sit in a loose semicircle, their hands shaping clay into delicate forms. Bowls, jars, even tiny figurines. You spot a woman named Tara, her fingers dancing over a small pot, her lips moving slightly as if humming without sound. The silence here is warm, not heavy, and you settle on a woven mat, trying not to disturb the rhythm. The air feels alive, like the clay itself is listening to these wordless melodies, and you're eager to understand their quiet magic. Let's ground this in history. In the Indus Valley civilization, around 2600–1900 BCE, women were key players in pottery, often crafting smaller, intricate pieces for rituals or trade. While men handled larger vessels, women's work was prized for its detail, and their techniques were passed down through generations, often in silence to maintain focus. These silent songs might have been a way to infuse their creations with personal meaning, blending craft with a kind of meditative art. Historians suggest this practice strengthened communal bonds, especially among women, but the exact nature of these songs is a mystery as fleeting as the clay's wet sheen. Tara notices you and offers a small lump of clay, gesturing for you to join. You hesitate. Your track record with pots isn't stellar, but you take it, mimicking her gentle kneading. She moves her fingers in a rhythmic pattern, almost like a melody, and you try to follow, pressing the clay in time with her. It's harder than it looks. Your lump looks more like a squashed fruit than a pot, but the motion feels like a song you can't hear. The silence isn't empty. It's full of intent, like each press of her fingers is a note in an invisible tune. You're starting to feel it too, a quiet hum in your hands. Here's the quirky detail. Some women would sing to their clay by tapping their fingers in specific sequences, believing it gave the pot a memory of their touch. The odd part, they'd sometimes use a specific number of taps, 7 or 9, to match the phases of the moon, thinking it tied the pot to celestial rhythms. Historians still debate whether this was a spiritual act or a way to ensure consistent shaping. Tapping might have helped gauge the clay's texture. Some argue it was about embedding personal energy. Others say it was just a mnemonic trick for teaching apprentices. You're tapping your clay now, aiming for 7, but you lose count at 5 and hope the moon doesn't mind. The courtyard's alive with subtle motion, women shaping and tapping in their own quiet rhythms, their faces calm but focused. You notice a younger woman nearby, her fingers tracing a spiral on her pot, her lips twitching like she's singing inside her head. You try it, mouthing a made-up tune to your lump, and it feels silly but soothing, like whispering a secret to a friend. The silence binds the group, and you're struck by how personal this feels, like each woman's song is a piece of her story. Your pot's a mess, but you're starting to love the process, flaws and all. As the lamp's flame flickers lower, the women begin to wrap up, setting their creations on a wooden rack to dry. Tara gives you a nod, her eyes kind, as if your lumpy effort counts for something. You set your clay aside, hoping it's got a bit of your song in it, and step back into the night. The village is quiet, but you've heard of a river ritual where pots are dipped for blessing, and you're betting it's another silent step in this ancient craft. The stars guide your path, and you're ready to see what the river holds next. The Harappan village sleeps under a canopy of stars, the air cool and heavy with the scent of river water and blooming nightshade as you slip away from the women's workshop, your lumpy clay song still humming in your hands. Your bare feet, now practically one with the earth, pad softly along the dirt path, and your satchel, stuffed with a jar and bowl, swings gently at your side. The quiet rhythm of Tara's tapping lingers in your mind, like a melody you can't quite shake. You're headed back to the Indus River now, where potters perform a silent blessing by dipping their creations in the water. After the courtyard's intimate craft, you're ready for the river's cool embrace and whatever sacred secrets it holds. You reach the riverbank where the Indus glints like molten silver under the moonlight. A small group of potters stands knee-deep in the shallows, their silhouettes dark against the water's shimmer. You spot Mira, the potter from the square, holding a finished pot, its surface etched with a fish motif. She dips it slowly into the river, letting the current swirl around it, her movements deliberate and wordless. The silence is profound, broken only by the gentle splash of water and the rustle of reeds. You wade in, the cool water shocking your feet, and join them, clutching your jar, ready to see what this blessing means. Let's ground this in history. The Indus River was the lifeblood of the Indus Valley civilization around 2600–900 BCE, nourishing cities like Harappa with water, trade, and clay. It was also sacred, seen as a divine force that sustained life and craft. Dipping pots in the river wasn't just practical, cleaning or strengthening the clay. It was a ritual, possibly to honor the river's spirit or ensure the pot's purpose. The silence, historians suggest, was a way to focus reverence, linking the potters to the river's eternal flow. The exact meaning is unclear, like much of this civilization, but the act feels like a bridge between earth and something greater. Mira hands you a small pot from a pile on the bank, gesturing for you to dip it. You wade deeper, the water lapping at your knees, and lower the pot, feeling the current tug gently. It's heavier than you expected, like the river's claiming a piece of it. You mimic Mira, holding it under for a moment, then lifting it, water streaming off its curves. The act feels solemn, like you're asking the river to approve your work, even if your work's more enthusiastic than skilled. The silence binds the group, and you're starting to feel the river's pulse, like it's blessing you too. Here's the quirky detail: some potters believed the pot had to be dipped facing upstream to catch the river's strength, or downstream to release its flaws. The odd part, they'd sometimes dip it twice, once each way, to cover both bases, like hedging a spiritual bet. Historians still debate whether this was a religious act or a practical way to ensure the pot's surface was smooth. Some argue it was about aligning with the river's flow, others say it was just a way to rinse off dust. You're dipping your pot upstream now, hoping you've picked the right direction, though Mira's slight smile suggests there's no wrong way. The river's chill seeps into your bones as the potters continue, each dipping their creations with care. You notice a man nearby holding his pot under longer, his lips moving silently, like he's praying to the water. You try it, mouthing a vague wish for your jar to hold something good, grain water, or maybe just luck. The silence feels like a shared secret, and you're struck by how personal this ritual is, even in a group. Your pot's dripping now, its fish motif gleaming wetly, and you're wondering if it's stronger for it, or if you just got it soggy. As the moon shifts higher, the potters wade back to shore, their blessed pots cradled like treasures. Mira gives you a nod as if you've earned a small place in their world, and you step onto the bank, water pooling at your feet. The river's song lingers, but you're drawn to a rumor of children learning pottery through silent lessons, passing the craft hand to hand. The village waits, its quiet pulse guiding your steps, and you're ready to see what the next generation holds. The Harappan village is cloaked in the quiet of pre-dawn, the stars fading as you leave the riverbank, your blessed jar still damp in your hands, its fish motif catching the last of the moonlight. The air's cool, scented with wet reeds and the faint warmth of sleeping kilns, and your bare feet. Now one with the earth, tread lightly on the path. Your satchel, heavy with your bowl and other clay treasures, swings softly at your side. The river's blessing lingers like a cool breath on your skin, and you're headed to a potter's yard where children learn the craft through silent, tactile lessons. After the river's solemn ritual, you're curious to see how the next generation carries this wordless tradition. You find the yard behind a cluster of mud, brick houses, a small, dusty space where a dozen children sit in a loose circle, each with a lump of clay. A potter named Kavi, gray-haired but nimble, moves among them, his hands guiding without speaking. You spot a girl, no older than 10, shaping a tiny bowl, her fingers mimicking Kavi's with a focus that's almost fierce. The silence is gentle, filled with the soft pad of clay, and the occasional giggle quickly hushed. You settle on a low bench, trying not to distract, and watch this quiet classroom unfold, feeling like you're glimpsing the village's future. Let's ground this in history. In the Indus Valley civilization around 2600–1900 BCE, pottery was a family trade, passed down through generations with children learning early. Apprenticeship was hands-on, often silent to emphasize observation over instruction. a method that ensured precision in a craft vital to daily life and trade. These young potters weren't just making pots, they were learning to sustain a culture that stretched from Harappa to distant markets. Historians suggest this silent teaching built discipline and community, but the details, how young, how long, remain as elusive as the clay's wet shine. Kavi notices you and hands you a small clay lump, gesturing for you to join. You're no master, your spiral pot's proof. But you sit beside the girl, trying to shape a bowl. Your fingers fumble, and the clay squishes into something more pancake than pot, but she glances over with a shy smile, showing you how to press gently. The silence helps you focus, and you start to feel the clay's rhythm like a heartbeat under your hands. It's humbling, learning from a kid, but her patience is contagious, and you're starting to think you might not totally botch this one. Here's the quirky detail. Some children were taught to listen to the clay by pressing their ears to it before shaping, believing it spoke through tiny air bubbles. The odd part, if the clay sang too loudly, too many pops, they'd discard it, thinking it was flawed. Historians still debate whether this was a spiritual practice or a clever way to check for cracks or air pockets that could ruin firing. Some argue it was about teaching kids to trust their senses. Others say it was just a playful ritual to keep them engaged. You're tempted to try it, but your clay's already a mess, so you stick to shaping, hoping it's not muttering complaints. The yard's alive with quiet effort, children molding and smoothing, their hands moving like tiny echoes of the adults you've seen. You notice a boy nearby rolling clay into a snake, then flattening it into a disc, his focus unbroken even as Kavi corrects him with a gentle tap. You try again, your bowl slightly less disastrous this time, and the girl nods, like you're getting it. The silence isn't strict, it's nurturing, letting mistakes happen without judgment. You're struck by how this craft binds the village, from river to kiln to these small hands, all in wordless harmony. As the sky lightens, hinting at dawn, Kavi signals the end, collecting the children's creations in a basket. The girl gives you her tiny bowl, a gift you don't deserve but accept with a grin, tucking it into your satchel. The yard empties, but its quiet energy lingers, drawing you toward a rumor of a starlit dance where potters honor their craft with movement, not words. The village is waking, its pulse steady under the fading stars, and you're ready to see what this silent celebration holds. The Harappan village stirs under the first blush of dawn, the air cool and fragrant with the scent of dew, soaked earth and lingering kiln smoke as you slip away from the children's pottery yard, your satchel now cradling the girl's tiny bowl alongside your other clay keepsakes. Your bare feet, battle, scarred but steady, sink into the soft dirt path, and the quiet hum of the village feels like a heartbeat under your skin. The memory of small hands shaping clay lingers, a reminder of how this craft weaves through generations. You're headed to an open field now, where potters are said to perform a starlit dance, a silent ritual to honor their work. After the tactile lessons, you're ready for something that moves, something that sings without sound. You reach the field, a wide stretch of earth ringed by tamarind trees, where the last stars still glimmer above. A group of potters gathers in a loose circle, their silhouettes soft against the fading night. You spot Ravi, the potter from your first dawn, standing tall, his hands relaxed but poised. The silence is warm, alive with the rustle of leaves and the distant call of a night bird. Without a word, the potters begin to move, their steps slow and deliberate, tracing patterns in the dust like the spirals on their pots. You're invited with a nod, and you step in, heart pounding, ready to join this wordless dance. Let's ground this in history. The Indus Valley civilization around 2600–1900 BCE likely used dance as a communal expression, tying people to their rituals and environment. While no direct evidence of potter-specific dances exists, archaeologists have found figurines in dance, like poses, suggesting movement was part of spiritual or social life. The silence you're witnessing could have been a way to focus intent, linking the potter's craft to the rhythms of earth and sky. Historians suggest such rituals strengthened community bonds, but their purpose, celebration, worship, or something else, remains as elusive as the stars fading overhead. Ravi leads the dance, his steps a gentle sway, hands tracing arcs like he's shaping clay in the air. You try to follow, your movements clumsy but earnest, feeling the earth under your feet like a potter's wheel. The group moves as one, their steps weaving a pattern you can't quite grasp. Maybe a spiral, maybe a star. The silence isn't empty, it's full, carrying the weight of their craft, their hands mimicking the motions of molding, firing, blessing. Your own steps falter, but Ravi's slight smile keeps you going, and you're starting to feel the dance's pull, like you're spinning with the clay itself. Here's the quirky detail. Some dances included a moment where potters would pause and touch the ground, believing it thanked the earth for its clay. The odd part, they'd sometimes sprinkle a pinch of clay dust on their feet first, thinking it connected them to the soil's spirit. Historians still debate whether this was a spiritual act or a symbolic gesture to honor their materials. Some argue it was about grounding the dancers in their craft, others say it was just a way to mark the dance's sacred space. You're tempted to try it, but you're already tripping over your own feet, so you stick to swaying, hoping the earth approves. The field hums with quiet motion, the potter's shadows blending into the dawn's soft light. You notice a woman nearby, her hands raised like she's offering something to the sky, her steps light but deliberate. You mimic her, lifting your arms, and it feels silly but freeing, like you're part of the village's pulse. The silence binds you all, and you're struck by how this dance feels like a vow, a way to carry the clay's story into the body. Your satchel bumps against your hip, and you wonder if your jar and bowl are dancing too, in their own quiet way. As the first rays of sun break over the horizon, the dance slows, the potters coming to a gentle stop, their hands resting at their sides. Ravi gives you a nod, as if you've woven yourself into their ritual, and you step back, breathless but calm. The field's energy lingers, but you're drawn to a rumor of forgotten tools, their shapes sparking debates among the potters. The village is waking, its quiet rhythm guiding your steps, and you're ready to see what secrets these ancient crafts hold. The Harappan village wakes under a golden dawn, the air warm with the scent of sun, baked earth, and blooming acacia as you slip away from the starlit dance, your body still humming with the rhythm of silent steps. Your bare feet, now one with the dust, carry you along a quiet path, your satchel heavy with clay treasures, a jar, a bowl, and the memory of a spiral traced under moonlight. The potter's dance lingers like a melody in your bones, and you're headed to a dusty storeroom where forgotten tools of the trade are said to spark debates among artisans. After the field's flowing ritual, you're ready to hold something solid, to see what secrets these ancient shapes whisper. You find the storeroom behind a potter's workshop, a low mud brick shed with a sagging roof, its door creaking as you push it open. Inside, shelves are crammed with odd tools, bone styluses, wooden scrapers, and clay molds, covered in dust like relics from a lost world. You spot Karan, the market trader, sorting through a pile, his hands careful but curious. The silence here is different, thoughtful, as if the tools themselves are waiting to speak. You step closer, brushing cobwebs aside, and pick up a worn scraper, its edge smooth from years of use. This isn't just a shed, it's a time capsule, and you're ready to dig in. Let's ground this in history. The Indus Valley civilization around 2600–1900 BCE was a hub of craftsmanship, and pottery relied on specialized tools that shaped its precision and style. Archaeologists have unearthed scrapers, molds, and styluses at sites like Harappa, hinting at a sophisticated trade passed down silently through generations. These tools weren't just practical, they carried the potter's knowledge. Each nick and wear mark a story of clay and hands. Historians suggest their variety reflects the civilization's diversity, but their exact uses, some molds are bafflingly complex, spark endless arguments, like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Kiran hands you a clay mold shaped like a tiny bowl, its details so fine you wonder how it was carved. He gestures for you to try, pointing to a lump of clay nearby. You press the clay into the mold, hoping for a miniature masterpiece, but it sticks, and your bowl comes out looking like a lumpy cow. Karen's chuckle breaks the silence, a rare sound, and he shows you how to tap the mold gently to release it. Your second attempt's better, still no masterpiece, but it's got horns at least. The silence returns, and you're starting to feel the tool's weight, like they're teaching you the craft's patience. Here's the quirky detail. Some tools were buried with potters when they died, believed to carry their skill to the afterlife. The odd part, these tools were sometimes deliberately broken first, maybe to free their spirit or prevent misuse. Historians still debate whether this was a spiritual practice or a way to retire worn-out tools respectfully. Some argue it was about honoring the potter's legacy. Others think it was practical, keeping valuable tools out of rival hands. You're holding the scraper now, wondering if it was meant for a grave and hoping you're not jinxing it by touching it. The storeroom's alive with quiet discovery, Kiran and a few others sorting and testing tools like archaeologists in their own time. You notice a woman nearby examining a stylus with a notched end, her fingers tracing its grooves as if decoding a message. You try a similar one, scratching a wobbly line into a clay scrap, and it feels like writing a letter to the past. The silence binds you all, a shared respect for these forgotten relics, and you're struck by how they connect you to potters long gone. Your bull mold's drying, a small triumph, and you're wondering what it'd look like fired. As the morning sun filters through the shed's cracks, Kiran begins to pack up, setting the tools back on their shelves. He gives you a nod, as if you've earned a glimpse into their world, and you step outside, the scraper's weight still in your hand. The village hums with life, and you've heard of one final ritual, a communal kiln firing that seals the potter's silent legacy. The path to the kilns calls, its dust warm under your feet, and you're ready to see how this ancient craft burns bright. The Harappan village glows under the midday sun, its warmth seeping into the dust as you leave the storeroom, the clay bull mold still tacky in your hands. A final keepsake to join your satchel's crowded collection of jar, bowl, and memories of silent craft. The air's thick with the scent of baked earth and faint traces of river reeds, and your bare feet, now practically stone, carry you toward the communal kilns, where the potters gather for one last ritual, a grand firing that seals their legacy in flame. The storeroom's dusty tools linger in your mind, each nick a story of hands long gone, and you're ready to see this ancient art burn bright, closing the circle of clay and silence. You reach the kiln yard, a wide, bustling space where dome-shaped ovens pulse with heat, their clay walls glowing like the sun itself. Potters move with quiet purpose, stacking pots in careful rows, their hands steady despite the midday swelter. You spot Leela, the riverbank potter, arranging her jars with a focus that feels like prayer. The silence is alive, woven with the crackle of kindling and the soft thud of clay against clay. You're invited to join with a nod, and you crouch by a kiln, the heat kissing your skin, ready to place your own wobbly creations, jar and bowl, into the fire's embrace, hoping they'll emerge whole. Let's ground this in history. The Indus Valley civilization, around 2600–1900 BCE, depended on kilns to transform raw clay into durable pottery, vital for storage, trade, and rituals. These communal firings were more than practical. They were celebrations of craft, uniting potters in a shared act of creation. The silence, historians suggest, was crucial for precision, ensuring the fire's heat was just right to avoid cracked pots. This final ritual likely marked the end of a cycle, from river clay to finished vessels, tying the community to its roots. The details are scarce, like smoke in the wind, but the kiln's glow feels like the civilization's heartbeat. Leela hands you a bundle of reeds to feed the fire, and you mimic her careful toss, watching sparks dance upward. The kiln's heat is fierce, like standing inside a summer storm, and you're sweating through your tunic. You place your jar and bowl inside, nestling them among others, and it feels like sending a piece of yourself into the flames. The potters work in sync, stoking and adjusting, their silence a shared language of trust. Your hands shake a bit. Your pots are no masterpieces. But the fire doesn't judge, and Leela's steady glance says you're part of this, flaws and all. Here's the quirky detail some potters would name their pots before firing, not with words but by tracing a secret mark, a dot or line, on the base, believing it gave the pot a soul. The odd part, if the pot survived the kiln, the mark was said to hold luck. If it cracked, the name was lost. Historians still debate whether this was a spiritual act or a way to track ownership in communal firings. Some argue it was about personalizing the craft, others say it was just a potter's signature for trade. You're tempted to mark your jar, but your spiral's already a signature of sorts, so you let the fire decide its fate. The kilns roar now, their glow casting shadows that flicker like spirits across the yard. You notice a young potter nearby, her hands guiding a long stick to shift pots, her movements so precise it's like she's dancing with the flames. You try it, nearly toppling a neighbor's jar, but Leela's quick hand saves it, her smile forgiving. The silence binds you all, and you're struck by how this moment feels eternal, like every potter who ever stood here is watching. Your pots are hidden in the fire's heart, and you're wondering if they'll emerge as art or ash. As the sun begins to dip, the potters gather around the kilns, sharing water and flat bread in a quiet circle, their faces lit by the fading glow. You join them, nibbling bread that tastes of smoke and earth, and feel the village's pulse in your chest. Leela gives you a final nod, as if you've carried their silence through river, wheel, and fire. You step back, the kiln's warmth lingering on your skin, and let the village's story settle, ready to drift into its dreams. And so, the kiln's glow softens, their warmth fading into the Harapan night like a sigh. You're standing still now, the village quiet, its mud, brick houses cradling the day's work under a sky heavy with stars. The river hums in the distance, a lullaby woven from clay and time, carrying the potter's silent stories into the dark. Your satchel rests at your side, heavy with gifts, jar, bowl, and the weight of hands that shaped them. The air feels lighter, like the earth itself is breathing you to sleep. Let the stars guide you now, their light a gentle nudge toward dreams where clay still sings. Close your eyes, let the river's flow carry you, and rest in this ancient, wordless world. Good night.